Welcome to the Texas Conflict Coach radio program. If you have ever experienced or engaged in destructive or unresolved conflict, then you know it leads to broken relationships, distrust, and damaging results. Our program will help you manage and resolve conflict effectively with strategies, valuable resources, and support. I am your host, Patty Porter. My guest hosts, Zina Zameta and Stephen Kotev, along with our guest experts, will share our experiences, raise your awareness, and give you food for thought. We will share with you problem-solving strategies no matter what your situation is. At work, with neighbors or friends, family, and as partners. Tune in or join in the conversation every Tuesday evening.
Hi, this is Zina Zameta, your guest host, and our program today is Courageous Conversations Between Parents and Their LGBTQ Children, regardless of age. And LGBTQ stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and either queer or questioning. The coming out conversation can be extremely difficult on both sides. This program will look at some of the repercussions the LGBTQ person faces from the conversation, as well as the gains that are made. We will also look at resources available to LGBTQ people and their friends and families. Joining me today is Priscilla Fernandez, a proud parent and president of the San Antonio, Texas PFLAG chapter, and PFLAG stands for Parents, Families, and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. Priscilla was driven to support and advocate for the LGBTQ community when her son came out at the age of 14. She experienced a spiritual epiphany that allowed her to be brave enough to dismiss judgmental societal norms about the LGBTQ community. She found her true passion and peace by quitting her job as a corporate executive and becoming a yoga instructor in order to devote her time to honor the light, love, truth, beauty, and peace within others. Priscilla, that's beautiful. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Zina, for having us here, and it's an honor for me to be here as a voice and an advocate for, the 350 PFLAG chapters and over 200,000 members and supporters that are out there across America.
Oh, we're delighted. So, Priscilla, can we start with the coming out process? What is the coming out process like for the LGBTQ person and for their family member or other person that they share it with for the first time?
Well, once again, it's an honor to just be talking about the coming out process. But in general, for everyone, it's different. And what I do want to say or do want to mention is that the coming out process is different for everyone. And you don't have to be, a famous person or recognized in the media. I think we all go through it. And the important thing to know regarding courageous conversations is that parents and family members also go through a coming out process with the LGBTQ individual. So it's a coming out process for both sides.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience?
Most definitely. My experience, again, I went through the coming out process, and Jonathan came out or started showing signs when he was 12 years old. So we both stayed in the closet for a period of 2 years where we just kept it between the two of us. And during that time, and I've heard it from other people, you do go through what's called, stages of grief. And I didn't go through anger, but I did go through, denial and just kind of resentment and just questioning and wondering if I had done something wrong as a parent. What I didn't realize, and now I realize it from talking to so many LGBTQ individuals, is that they go through the same thing that we're going through. So fear and isolation and confusion. So as they're coming out, the parent or the family member that they're trying to come out to is also coming out. So I hope that does make sense to individuals that are listening. But sometimes it doesn't make sense because we had to actually hide it for 2 years, and it wasn't for another 2 years, so a total of 4 years, where Jonathan, would hide things from me. and he would, he dated girls in middle school. He would tell me he was having conversations with girls when he was actually having relationships with boys. And it wasn't until I caught him on the phone one time and I just looked at him. So it's not an amazing coming out story, but it is just more heartfelt. Is I caught him on the phone with a boy, and this is when he's 14 years old now. And I said, Jonathan, what's going on? Is there something you have to tell me? Because he hid it for a period of 2 years. And he said, Mom, all I want to do is I want to be happy. I want to be happy. I want you to love me, and I want for God to love me. When he said that to me, it just broke my heart. That's when everything just disappeared. All the fear, resentment, denial. I knew that he was officially coming out. And so he was ready at the time, and then I was also ready. So it was actually a good experience. I've heard tons of stories. You have funny stories where parents say, we knew all along, we were just waiting for them to come out, and we supported them. We made a joke out of it. But then you have those really, really courageous stories, and to me, courage is an honor to be able to stand up for yourself and to come out and tell your story when you've covered it up in fear and isolation. And so one other story that I did want to share is part of something called the Fearless Project, and it's a book by the author Jeff Shane. But he took this book and compiled it with LGBTQ athletes. And one of the personal stories that I can share, and I've had permission to share, is that of Matt Dooley, who was a tennis player for Notre Dame. And when you talk about the coming out process, is that he was in such fear and isolation that he attempted suicide in September of 2011.
Oh my.
And just hearing his story from the perspective of his mother, Michelle Dooley, and now reading the Fearless book, is you just see so many LGBTQ people who are afraid. They're in the closet and they're still afraid. So a lot of times you'll hear it in the media, or you'll hear comments like, oh, another person is coming out gay, what's the big deal? But I don't think it's until you've had that courageous conversation with your loved one about the coming out process, or you've experienced it yourself, when it would really hit home for you.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. How the experience is just so different for so many people. Some parents hide it, and they're not courageous. It's kind of don't ask, don't tell, and they don't want to talk about it. Same thing goes for the LGBTQ individual. They'd rather just remain in the closet as opposed to facing that fear of being rejected or isolated. So really, it's having the courage to face a family member or a friend and just say it out loud. And it sounds like you knew for 2 years, but it took you a couple of years to bring it up yourself to your son.
It definitely did, and that's because our society is so judgmental. My grandfather is a deacon for the Catholic Church, and I was born and raised Catholic. So most people in the LGBT community, if they have affiliated with their faith, they've heard that it's a sin and that it's evil. So I think we grow up automatically feeling that judgmental society. How are people going to look at us? What are people going to say? So for me, it was, what will the rest of our family say? What will our neighbors say? What will my employer say? Because it's funny, but you still have the deer in the headlights look, or the jaw-dropping look, when they ask the question, does your son have a girl? Your son's in college. Does he have a girlfriend yet? And I say, well, he would if he were straight.
What a great answer.
That is. We've learned to make jokes about it, but it's just funny how you still have certain people that would rather not talk about it.
Well, can you talk a little bit more about the repercussions that LGBTQ people face? Because that's what the fear is, right? Is the repercussions. What is it that they're worrying about, and what are the experiences of people in terms of repercussions?
So I think the biggest fear is that they don't want to hurt anyone else, because I know Jonathan said that he didn't want to hurt or disappoint me. It's that hurtful rejection. However, with that hurtful rejection, we've heard stories where it's just horrible stories. 40% of homeless youth are LGBTQ, and it's because family rejection is usually a leading cause. If you look at stories of, I read through the book Fearless, I've read through, some other books, and the main topic that you see in there too is suicide. Suicide in the LGBTQ community is just so high because, Matt's story is one of them. They say they'd rather not face that rejection. You talk about bullying, getting kicked out of their home. There are so many repercussions that LGBTQ community people face, but not only them, sometimes their families face those repercussions as well. A lot of times... In what way? Well, what I've heard is that you have to give, I kind of did the same with my family, but you have to give people ultimatums sometimes. You have to befriend some of your friends. You find out who your true friends and family are. Mm-hmm. You have to tell your family and your friends, this is my child, and I love them and support them no matter what their sexual orientation is, and I'm going to stand up for them. If you're in a workplace, you have to stand up for those people. If you're in a school and you see somebody being bullied or harassed, you have to make them feel safe and accepted. So I think when you use the word ultimatum, can you say a little bit more about what you mean? Sure, I've heard it from plenty of LGBTQ people. Is that they finally just get fed up and they know that their family or friends will reject them, but they will go to them and just tell them, you know what, you're going to love me for who I am, and you're going to accept me for who I am, and I'm not evil, and I'm not a sinful person. This is just who I am, and if you don't accept me, I will no longer talk to you, or we don't. And the sad thing, though, is that you see those repercussions more from parents who are angry and upset at their children. In the book Mom, Gay by Susan Cottrell, there's an actual letter, and it's such a hateful letter from saying, I don't ever want to talk to you again. I don't ever want to see you. Don't think about, if you come to my funeral, that's fine, because I'll be buried under the ground. So those are the kind of examples, I think, that put the LGBTQ community at more, with that fear and it causes them to isolation because they hear the stories and they see things. So did you have experiences like that with your family when you, as you said, came out to your family? Most definitely. Well, I'm Hispanic, as I don't know if I mentioned that, but I'm Hispanic and Catholic upbringing. And so, the men in my family are very what they call machismos in Spanish. And so we always, my son and I, and that's a big part of why we stayed, we didn't come out for 2 years, was because we saw the elevator eyes. We saw the looks. We saw the secrets, is he gay? Is he not gay? Why does he act like that? His mannerisms are different. Why does he talk to certain people on social media? I think at one point during Christmas, my brother and I had a huge fight. And I finally yelled at him and I said, you are his godfather and you are going to accept him no matter what. And if you don't accept him, then we will no longer speak to you. We don't have to be part of the family. So it gets to be that bad, but I think the saddest thing that we've seen is when a parent tells an LGBTQ child, I don't ever want to see you again. You have no place to live now. Get out of my house. I don't want to see you. I don't want to talk to you. And that is really what that is really what drove me to have more of a passion for the community. So it's not so much Jonathan. He's fine with being gay. He says he is who he is. But it's more just the passion for helping others who are rejected.
That's beautiful. Well, let me remind the listeners, you are listening to the Texas Conflict Coach Blog Talk radio program, and we are talking with Priscilla Fernandez about courageous conversations between parents and their LGBTQ children, regardless of age. Priscilla, in your experience, how have you seen people face this so that they become their true selves?
Well, I think that, again, they're not living in the closet for one. So not living in the closet is just such a relief because you realize that you're not alone. When you're able to share, your true self with somebody, you finally feel like you can be at peace with who you truly are. There's freedom. There's a sense of freedom for freedom from fear, from hate, from condemnation. And you make the point of not being alone. That's very powerful. Yeah, very powerful, especially when it comes to suicidal tendencies. Because I think that's the biggest thing is when you're gay, you don't want to come out right away. Some people want to stay in the corner. And, it's crazy because we see, Supreme Court passes marriage equality, Caitlyn Jenner comes out as transgender. So even though we have all this, media attention and it's the height of a historical movement in our world, you still have people, for example, just last month at our meeting, we had a 40-year-old individual who is still struggling with the coming out process to his parents.
Wow. So that's
he's living in the closet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that really, when you see something like that, you really understand how difficult these conversations are.
Yeah, and I think that's what hurts me the most is when I see, we say children, we're all children really, but because we all have parents, but I think that the adults becoming their true self is so important because I've seen people in their 40s, 50s, 60s that remained in the closet because back then, it may have not been easy to come out. But then again, we see children that are confused because they're 5 or 10, as young as 5 or 10 years old, and they know that they're different, but they don't know how to become their true selves yet. They're not there yet.
Yeah, and so the relief of being their true selves, where they can take off the mask, is really what you're talking about.
Exactly. It's a huge weight off of their shoulders and their chest, their heart, everything. It's a breath of fresh air. I mean, being true to yourself and who you truly are is just, in my opinion, it's the best freedom that you could ever have. Because if you listen to the stories, a lot of LGBTQ people, and myself included, we look back at how we hid it, so before the coming out process, or how we maybe denied it, or maybe we heard hateful comments and we didn't do anything to stop it or to advocate against it. And it's because, again, we were in the closet and we hadn't come out now. So when you finally are able to say, my son is gay, or my daughter, is gay or lesbian, or, my child, or you yourself are able to say, I'm gay, and walk around and be proud of being gay, it is a huge breath of fresh air, I think.
Yeah. Well, are there other things that people gain once they've had that conversation? How does it change relationships that are good? How does it change other relationships? What happens then once they've had the conversation?
Well, I think that they do gain a sense of pride, and most of them are amazing individuals who start standing up and advocating for other people because they know that there's other individuals out there that need to share their story as well. So I think that, you know, the LGBTQ community is great when it comes to providing resources and economical advantage. All of these authors in these books, Matthew Vines is another one, God and the Gay Christian, and then Jeff Shing, they attended Harvard University. You know, they're successful individuals, but I think it's not until, I think a lot of times what happens is it prohibits them, when they're not their true self, it prohibits them from being the best that they can be in life. But once you see somebody come out and be their true selves, they find their true calling, their true passion, their true, you know, their happiness. And I think that happiness is the key. Happiness is the key to just being comfortable with who you are.
And it's so beautiful to hear you talk about that the happiness can come out, because that must be really true, that when you're hiding something, it's very hard to be happy.
Yes, I mean, in the book, Matt Dooley mentions, he says, you know, I was mad at myself. I didn't love myself. I didn't like myself. So how could my parents love me? So I think they also learn to love authentically, to be authentic, to maybe be in an open relationship, because I think that's a big thing for them, is that they have to hide who they truly love. Growing up, and, you know, until they actually come out, they have to hide. So there's just so many things that they benefit from, not only just a sense of relief, but, you know, just a sense of just pride and being worthy of who you are, and realizing that you're not alone.
Yeah, and in a sense being able to be what most of us think of as normal, that is going out on a date, bringing the person you love home to your parents, being able to be open and free about who you're with as well as who you are.
Yes, exactly, because LGBTQ coming out process is that you don't feel normal. You feel different. You feel different no matter how many people come out in the media, no matter how. It's just you feel different from the minute they realize. They just know that there's something different about them. And it's hard for us to understand. You know, I'm heterosexual, I'm straight. I had a hard time understanding it. I had a very difficult time understanding what it meant to be your true self. And then it wasn't until I quit my corporate job when I said, you know what, let's all just be true. Since we're all being honest now, let's just all be true to ourselves. But it really is society, though. Society, I just wish we could kind of redo society and all over again. And, you know, it's just crazy how people are just so adamant about their views and their perspective. I mean, people don't have to agree with it, but they have to respect individuals and accept people for who they are.
And so for you, when you started saying, okay, I really want to be an advocate, I really want to be supportive, I really want to do this even, you know, as much time as I can, what resources did you look to find, and where did you find them? What kind of resources are out there for people who, like you, really want to be supportive and to understand?
I think the important thing to know about the resources is that they were more people than they were actual, you know, organizations, but it's more people for the resources, because you just see these amazing people within the LGBTQ community. You see parents who advocate. They become your mentors. You just want to be like them, and you want to advocate for them. Jonathan says, I'm more gay than he is now. He says, Mom, you're more gay than I am. So, yeah,
I love it.
You know, I just applaud, you know, directors of, you know, places like Thrive Youth Center in San Antonio who help, you know, homeless youth. You know, there's centers in New York and in LA, but they were able to, you know, somebody within the LGBTQ community was brave enough to say, you know what, I was homeless as a youth, and I'm not going to do that to the community. I'm going to help the community. I'm going to give back to them. And then you have the Human Rights Campaign, who will just advocate and support and legislate and lobby for equality. So they had a huge impact on marriage equality, but now they're taking it to another level with, just the Equality Act in general and non-discrimination in employment and housing. You have GLAD, GLISTEN, and It Gets Better Project, and those all support youth. And GLAD has a great anti-bullying campaign, and on October 15th, they have something called Spirit Day, where they actually they do something in honor of LGBTQ youth in order to prevent anti-bullying. So not only are there plenty of resources in San Antonio, but you have national resources. PFLAG National has one of the best libraries and resources there where you could just get different publications on education and programs that they support. So there's so many resources out there, and there's a laundry list. But I think, if anything, the most important thing is it's the people. People like Jeff Shane, photographer, author, didn't become a tennis player, but instead he made this wonderful book called Fearless.
And where would people find these people? If somebody wanted to find support or wanted to go talk to people about their situation, where would they go to find them?
So the best thing to do really is if you Google PFLAG National, or you Google even Human Rights Campaign, it will give you different links. If you go to our PFLAG website in San Antonio, that will, it's actually under construction right now. It's on the fritz. We've been having glitches with it. But we have different resources. We have different resources. But that's the great thing about the Internet, is on a national level now. When I found out when Jonathan was 12, I just started Googling things like, my son is gay, how can I help? Or anti-bullying. If you Google suicide, you can come up with the Trevor Project, which is helps with kids that are struggling with suicide. So there's a lot of resources out there that can help them. But I do highly, highly recommend that they get involved with either PFLAG chapter in their area or Human Rights Campaign, some sort of support group. There's also San Antonio Gender Association, so a ton of counseling and other LGBTQ resources and links on our website.
Oh, that's great. Well, we're coming towards the end of our program, and I'm wondering, what final message would you like to leave our listeners with?
Well, again, and this one gets me choked up all the time, but, when Jonathan came out to me, he said he just wanted to be happy. And so so I do think, that I'm going to share one of Jonathan's favorite quotes, but it's when I was 5 years old, my mother always told me that happiness is the key to life. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I wrote down happy. They told me that I didn't understand the assignment, and I told them that they didn't understand life. So that is a quote by John Lennon. But again, I think my message to everyone out there is just be brave and true to yourself. It's very simple. You need to accept others for who they are. You need to, people deserve respect in this world. You're never going to experience ultimate peace or joy without, true love and being true to yourself. And it takes unconditional love. And life is too short. There's a lot of darkness in this world, as we've seen, and there's a lot of things happening. And we just really need to be a positive light and just unite others through happiness. So I know I probably sound like a yoga instructor now.
Well, I think it's so
modern
beautiful.
Day hippie is what I like to call myself.
But it's clear that you really are that light for people, and your passion and your love really come through. So thank you so much.
Thank you
so much.
I think amazing things happen when you have the courage to be your true self.
And I think that it's clear from the way you speak that that's happened for you. So it's wonderful. Let me remind people of the web pages pflag.org and in San Antonio, pflag-sanantonio.org, and also the Facebook page, PFLAG and PFLAG SA for San Antonio. So again, Priscilla, thank you so much for joining us. This is truly beautiful.
You're welcome, Zena. It's been a pleasure, and good luck with the rest of your courageous conversation.
Thank you, and you too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Texas Conflict Coach. We hope you enjoyed the program. You can find all of our podcasts archived to listen at your convenience at texasconflictcoach.com or download the podcast at iTunes or Stitcher Radio. You can also become a Facebook fan of Conflict Connections or Twitter me at TX Conflict Coach.